Hello and welcome to the best part of my week, Life Skills Special Ed Reading. You can get to this presentation with all of the ideas and annotations at this bit.ly. Hello, my name is Courtney Pentland and I am a high school librarian in Lincoln, Nebraska. I also serve as adjunct faculty for the University of Nebraska-Omaha's School Library Program. I've served on the board of our state school library association for several years and am currently the 2023-24 American Association of School Librarians president. You can find me on social media at Live Love Library in a variety of places. Today, I am going to talk to you about my favorite students to work with during the week, which is my life skills special ed reading classes. These are self-contained special education classes that focus on reading. Our students cycle through reading, math, and other classes throughout the day. I get to come in and work with 3 of those classes one day each week. So we have different levels. So I call them level 1, level 2, and level 3. Our level 1 reading class has the most cognitive and mobility needs out of the groups, and level 3 has the most cognitive and mobility capabilities. Level 1 often uses reading A to Z books within their classwork that they do. Level 2 sometimes uses those as well and sometimes uses other pieces of information. And our level 2 and level 3 classes have also done class novels that they've all read together in class, like Charlotte's Web, Because of Winn-Dixie, The Chronicles of Narnia, as just to name a few. Sometimes they use their own copies of those books, and sometimes the teacher just reads out loud to them. So that's kind of the structure of how those classes are set up. So how this all started, I started at my school in the 2020-21 school year, so it was kind of an odd beginning to a new job, and these students were not accepting guests coming into their classroom because there were a lot of health concerns for them. So I didn't really have the opportunity to work with them my first year. And going into the second year, they were open to more visitors. And I spoke with the person who did the level 1 reading classes, and I talked him into letting me come in a couple of times to work with his students. And it worked really well. And I was able to start doing that every week. And from there, I finished out the year with him. The teachers kind of transitioned to different reading classes. So we had different folks teaching the different levels. And I was able to include level 2 that next year and right at the beginning. And then we got level 3 into that the next year as well. And now I just work with all of them each week. I am very, very lucky to sort of be included within the special ed team of those teachers, of our life skills teachers. We talk a lot about student needs and what they're teaching in class and how we can tap into the interests of the students and their ability and mobility levels. And we have a lot of really great conversations about that, as well as like, how do we connect to what they're learning in class, but how do we make it hands-on and fun as well? I do kind of feel like as part of their team now. They even asked me if I wanted to get their team t-shirts last year, and that felt really special. So their students are my students. I mean, all of our students in our building are my students, but I feel a very specific connection with them because I do get to work with them every week and also from year to year. So that feels really great and special. So how do we choose the topics of what we're going to be doing for class? Sometimes it's based off of what is happening in their reading classes. So are they reading a class novel? Is there a topic in their A to Z book? Sometimes it's based off of the time of year, season, student interest. So for example, when we came back from winter break, we did a week or two on snow and winter because we had 5 snow/cold days right after break mixed in our first couple of weeks, so that felt like a pretty good topic to go into with them. And there's also times where maybe we'll pull in a student's interest. So I know that this student is very into unicorns or very into dogs or something like that, and I'll pull those interests into what we're doing. I often use books from our school library. I have a pretty big everyone section of picture books and early chapter books that are used for checkout by these students as well as used for different assignments for other classes. I will pull books from Sora or from Epic to be able to project on the screen, or I look for books from other elementary schools in my district who can share with me, or I pick things up at our public library that will match the topic that we're doing at that time. It just kind of depends on my time crunch. Sometimes I find out what we're teaching the day before, and sometimes I get a week or two's notice. So lots of different options on being able to do that. I do use an IPVO, a document camera, to be able to project the pictures of the book if they are print books, so that it helps with our students who maybe have some visual needs as well. And then Sora and Epic are great because they are just up on the screen automatically. Activities and materials. So when we do our books, we read 1 or 2 books each week. But then we also try to do some hands-on activities with the students. So something that connects back to what we're reading about or learning about. Usually it's based off of what the book is that we've read. We do something fun. That's like a craft project or a game, or maybe notes pages that have a really fun design to them. I spend a lot of time searching the web for kids crafts that are based on the theme. Looking for things that match with supplies we already have on hand, or things that I can easily buy inexpensively or I can get donated. My good tip for you is if you have a neighborhood Facebook page or like a town Facebook page or something like that, ask people if they have any craft supplies that they are looking to offload. And then you can start your own little craft inventory of things that you can use. A lot of times I'll use the thin foam sheets or pipe cleaners or felt, things that are easily manipulated when we do that kind of thing. So those are some of the ways that I choose the activities and materials, what we have on hand, what's inexpensive, and what matches with what we're doing with the book that week. So when and where do these classes occur? They are 50 minutes. That's how long our class periods are. And usually the last 10 to 15 minutes we do checkout because we hold the classes in their classrooms. We begin in their classroom. That seems to be the most comfortable for a lot of our students. That is the place where they are used to that. Our library is used for so many different things in so many different ways that we can't guarantee that we'll have the same section of the library each week, or that it will be quiet or not triggering for any students. Plus, some of our students, their stimming activities are loud and vocal, and that way we're not disturbing anybody who's in the library. So we do our lessons in their classroom. And then we transition to check out from the library. And our students are very, very used to this at this point. They know kind of where to go to find what they're looking for. This is our everyone section. It looks a little different now than in this picture because I've reorganized some things, but you get kind of the idea. It's this whole corner. It's a pretty big collection of items for them to choose from. And we come down, they turn in their previous books, they check out new books, and we head back to class. So each of the classes I do 1 day a week. Typically I do level 1 on Wednesday, level 2 on Thursday, and level 3 on Friday. Sometimes I have to adjust that because I have another class that wants to have instruction that period, and I just need to finagle things a little bit, and I'll move one of my life skills classes to Monday or Tuesday, depending on what it is that's needed. So that's kind of how our classes are structured. And here are some of the ideas for things that I have done with our students. So what you'll notice is a lot of these are things that might be considered for elementary lessons. So you could very easily use any of these with general education elementary students, but you can also use them with life skills students at any grade level, including middle school and high school. All right, so this first year, reminder, I only worked with our level 1 class, and the teacher really focused on reading A to Z books. So whatever the topic was matched with their reading A to Z book for that week. Our very first week was the topic heavy or light, and I was a little nervous that I wouldn't be able to find books that matched with that, but my public library came through and I was able to find 2 books that were specifically about that topic. So we read through those, and then I borrowed a scale and brought in a bunch of different random items, and we tried to see if they would be heavy or light on the scale. So we talked about that and they guessed before we put something on there, and we had students pick up the items and put them on the scale so they got to see how it moved and worked. That was really fun. We did a clothing one, and we had Pete the Cat books. So for Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons, I cut out the yellow jacket and the little buttons and out of that thin foam, and the students put on the different colored buttons as we got to that part of the book. And then I love my white school shoes. We colored the different colors that show up in the book on our shoe as we went through the story. So they had something they were doing throughout the story that was their hands-on activity. We did tails. So I read What Do You Do with a Tail Like This, which is such a fun book. And then students matched a tail to the animal that the tail belonged to. And then we had coloring pages where they had to draw the tail for the animal that was in the picture. Get in the game, we read some of the dino sports books, and there was a selection of those online, so the students were able to pick which of the sports we wanted to read about, so we did those. And our athletic office was very kind and let us borrow some various sports balls to be able to have during class that the students could pick up and touch and feel those, because they may not have been able to do that in their PE classes with all of those options. And our lovely main office had some leftover like noise cones from some previous event. So each of the students got one of those themed noise cones from our school, and I made pom-poms out of plastic tablecloths. So as we were reading through the different dino books, they were able to cheer through their noise cone and shake their pom-poms when good things happened in the stories. We did caves, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to talk about bats. So we did the, ever love of my life. I love this book, Stella Luna, which was super fun, and Bats in the Library, which is a great fun book as well. And then we watched a video of young people going through a cave with their families. So we talked about that. And then we did an activity where they got to create bats as well as a craft. The animal caution signs, again, I thought that I would strike out and not be able to find books, and I was able to find books that we could read. And then I made a coloring book for each of the students that had unusual animals in it. So we have a unicorn lover in our group, so I made a unicorn crossing, and then we are the gators as our mascot, so we had a gator crossing, and they were able to do their coloring book with that. Airplanes was really fun because we have an aviation program at my school, so we were able to borrow some items from the aviation program, like a nose cone from an airplane. There's the inflatable vest. There's a seatbelt that they could lock and unlock, and some miniature planes that they could touch. And then I had some of my student assistants from the library come in, and they helped the students fold paper airplanes. And then we spent like 5 or 10 minutes just throwing paper airplanes around the room. It was delightful. Really loved that. Building a road, again, what picture books would be out there? And there were some. It was really, really fun. And then we played Candyland together, because that is a road. And each student got to pick a card, and then we'd move our character together. We were all working together on this one. So each student picked a card, told us what the color was, how many spaces we moved, and we would move through that. This was another really fun one, making music. So we found some picture books that had to do with music and music sounds, and I was able to borrow some percussion instruments from our music department. And one of our students who was the head of the drum line actually came to class with us and showed the students how to use all of the different instruments, and they got to try all of them out, which was delightful. We did phases of the moon with May Among the Stars, and we used Pebble Go to learn more about the moon. And I had a little cup thing where you turned it to see the different phases. Spring cleaning, again, not really sure. We ended up with this book, and then we made butterflies out of sponges. So they got to put the paint on their sponges and push it down, and they picked their eyeballs and their pipe cleaners to make the antennas. And the sponges turned out so cute that we kept those. And here we are in year 2, which was last year for me. And I had the reading A to Z books again in class novels. So when we did rivers and streams, we did that, and they did fishing for fish with popsicle sticks, magnets, and paper fish with paper clips on them. For level 1 and 2, we did why do leaves change color? So we spent a couple of weeks learning about leaves, and I took some paper bags down to our production area at our district office and cut leaves out of those paper bags. They painted them, we laminated those leaves and posted this tree out in the hallway outside their classrooms. We did Spookly because we talked about growing from seeds. So we were in October, so we did pumpkins, and they each got to make their own square or rectangle pumpkin. I have learned since this one to get the foam sheets that have the stickers on the backs of them, or the shapes that are stickers, because you will notice there is some very thick glue on these that are in here. We did sea animals, and we read some books, and then one week we did sharks and one week we did jellyfish and created those different things. I love the teeth in the sharks. You can see which ones where maybe they had more help from a para or did things more independently in there. So that was really fun. The jellyfish are tulle, like rainbow colored tulle, paper plate, and just some foam circles. We also learned about holidays, and they did a craft related to each of the holidays. When we did Charlotte's Web, we did a couple of lessons related to Charlotte's Web. So the first ones started out talking about a farm, and as we read the books with the farm in it, they held up their different puppets for the different things that they would see in the books. So if there was a cow that showed up on the page, they'd hold up the cow. If there was a barn, they'd hold up the barn. So we were paying attention as we went through that process. So for level 2 and level 3 of Charlotte's Web, you'll see we made different webs with spiders. For level 2 that has more mobility needs, we did thicker ribbon. And for level 3, we just did the standard yarn. So you'll see the difference there. And you'll also notice that I have upgraded my googly eye options, and there's different colors and sizes and things that they can choose from. So they pick whatever eyes they want to. And then one student really wanted to represent that spiders have many eyes. So there's lots of eyes on that one. And then in level 3, we started doing how to take notes. So we have notes pages, and they decide what information is important that they want to write down. I'll write it on the board, and then they copy it on their pages, but they decide what is important from the different pages that they want to put down. We did the fair, because the fair takes place in Charlotte's Web. We read a book or two, and then we watched a video of our state fair. And as they went through the video, they checked off the different items as they saw them. So if they heard somebody mention Nebraska, they'd check it off. Or if they saw a cow, or if they saw ice cream or something like that, they'd check those off as we went through the video. When we did Because of Winn-Dixie, one of the books that we read was Can I Be Your Dog, which is about rescue dogs. And we ended up braiding pieces of fleece together to make little dog toys that we donated to the local Humane Society. And that was an interesting thing with my level 3 students who are higher mobility, but braiding was new to a lot of them. So we spent quite a bit of time learning how to braid, and they each ended up making 2 of the little dog toys, which was great. And we did origami dogs. So they were able to fold their own origami dog, draw it however they wanted to, and then they named their dogs. We have also done things related to birds and snow after winter break. This time we read these 2 bird-related books and made little bird feeders that we hung on the trees outside of their classroom so they could watch the birds eat their little bird feeders. When we did volcanoes, we put baking soda in the paint to have it have a chemical reaction. I will tell you, it did not work terribly well when we put the vinegar on there. So we ended up having to sprinkle the baking soda on top of the paint. And then you'll see in the picture on the right that there was more of a reaction, but that was really fun. They put the paint down on their volcano and then helped us drop the vinegar on it. Year 3, I'm kind of doing whatever they need. They had an influx of new students, so that was difficult at first because they didn't know what the students needed, so they weren't able to tell me what the students needed. So we just kind of went with the flow at the beginning of the year. For my level 1 class, we talked about butterflies. We really focused in on monarchs and monarch migration. We made butterflies out of coffee filters and then made monarch looking butterflies as well. We also talked about fall leaves and we used air dry clay. They pressed a leaf into the air dry clay and then were able to paint it later to take home. We also did leaf rubbings as well as we were learning about leaves. We did extreme animals in level 2 and we took notes on a fun notes page of the different extreme animals we learned about. And we also learned about animals with super skin like spines, quills, and plates. And one of my secretaries has a hedgehog. So she brought the hedgehog in and the students got to meet the hedgehog, which was really fun. And they were able to make their own animals out of air dry clay with their spines, whatever animal they wanted to make. And Chronicles of Narnia, we focused in on mythical creatures. So we learned about dragons, mermaids, unicorns, and fairies, and ended up making our own fairy gardens. I just took a bunch of different pictures from Canva, gave them different backgrounds to choose from, and they created their own fairy garden. We also did some library fun at level 1 and 2 where they got to make their own bookmarks after reading some fun library books. And this is where we get to how do you get started. So all of these things are in this slideshow. You'll see the descriptions of the lessons down in the notes area, and I will be updating that as I go through the year. So this is a living document you can come back to whenever you want. But how do you do this if you want to start doing this in your school community? Who do you need to connect with in your building or your district? Do you need to talk to an administrator? Do you need to talk to the head of the special ed department? Are there specific teachers that teach your life skills or ACP or whatever program it is that they call that? Who are the people that you would work with to make this happen? Then you need to talk through the student needs. So what are their developmental and mobility needs? Talk with the teachers that work with them every day. They'll be able to tell you what needs those students have so you can take those into account as you plan your lessons. Think about what space works best for student needs. I have counterparts in other high schools in my district where the students come down to their library and that works great for them. For us, it was better for me to be in their classroom. So determine how that would work for you. And then what books do you have that students can check out? Do you have a section that has picture books in it? If you don't, what are some ways that you can acquire some of those? One way that I've added to my collection is that I've asked elementary schools if they're weeding things that are like multiple copies of our state award nominees. Maybe I could get one of those to add into my collection that's still in good shape. So where are some ways that you can add books that way into your collection to start building up items for students to check out? Because while they may be of age, they may not be developmentally ready for books that are in your general collection. How do you choose your topics? Talk about what's happening in those special education classes. What topics are they covering? What books do you have access to? Again, think about, can you borrow from other places? Can you use things online from like Sora or Hoopla or Epic? Can you get things from your public library? Where are your options available to you? What materials do you already have available to use? What types of hands-on materials do you have or could you get or ask for to use with students? And then what budget is available to you? Do you have a budget that you could use these things from? Does special education have a budget you could use to buy items for these types of activities? Do you have grants available to you? What can you use to find these supplies? Could you ask people to donate them that you know in your community? Thank you again for your time and your attention. I know this is a little longer than the 20 minutes, but I hope that it was helpful and useful for you. If you have any questions, I'm on a variety of social medias and not super great about checking all of them at the moment, but you can reach out to me at Live Love Library, or you can directly email me at mrspentland@gmail.com. Thank you so much and best of luck as you work with your special education reading students.